Pope Benedict XI, born Nicola Boccasini, was pope from the 22nd of October 1303 to his death on the 7th of July, 1304. He was also a member of the Order of Preachers. Among the events of his brief pontificate was his revocation of Pope Boniface VIII's papal bull, Unam Sanctam, on papal supremacy. He was beatified with his cultus confirmed by Pope Clement XII in 1736. He is a patron of Treviso. Biography. Early life. Nicola Boccasini was born in Treviso to Boccasio, a municipal notary, whose brother was a priest, and Berarda, who worked as a laundress for the Dominican friars of Treviso. Nicola had sister Adelette. The family lived outside the walls of Treviso in a suburb called S. Bartolomeo. In 1246, a Dominican friar left a sum of money in his will to Bernarda and her children, recently orphaned. A condition was that if Nicola were to enter the Dominican order, he would receive half of the entire legacy. For the age of 6, it seems, Nicola was destined for the monkish life. His first teacher was his uncle, the priest of S. Andrea. He entered the Order of Preachers in 1254, at the age of 14, taking the habit of a novice in his native Treviso. He was taken to Venice by his prior and presented to the provincial, who assigned him to the convent of SS. Giovanni e Paolo in Venice. For the next 7 years or so, Nicola pursued his basic education in Venice. Toward the end of this period, he served as tutor to the young sons of Romeo Quarini of Venice, whose brother was a canon in the Cathedral of Treviso. In 1262, Nicola was transferred to Milan, to the new studium of S. Eustorgio. He spent the next 6 years at S. Eustorgio. By the end of his term at S. Eustorgio he must have become a professed member of the Order of Preachers. The actual date, however, is unknown. As a professed brother he served in the responsible position as a lecturer in the studium in Venice. That is to say, he was in charge of the elementary education of the brothers in his convent. Each convent had its lector. He served as lector for 14 years, from 1268 to 1282, according to Bernardus Skydonis. In 1276 he is attested as being lector at the Dominican convent in his native Treviso, a post he was still holding in 1280. In February 1282, he is found at Genoa, again as lector. He was not a professor, since he had never taken a university degree. Office and responsibility. In 1286, at the meeting of the Provincial Chapter, which took place that year in Brescia, Fr. Nicola was elected Provincial Prior of Lombardy. As Provincial of Lombardy, Fr. Nicola's lifestyle changed considerably. Instead of being firmly attached to a single convent for years, he would instead become peripatetic, moving from one convent to another on visits of inspection, encouragement and correction. In Lombardy at the time there were some 51 convents. He also had responsibility as an inquisitor, a task for which popes considered Franciscans and Dominicans especially suited. He also had the responsibility of convening the provincial chapters. In 1287, the chapter was at Venice. In 1288, it was at Rimini. In 1289 at the general chapter, which was held at Trier. Fr. Nicola was released from the office of Provincial of Lombardy, having completed his 3-year term. It is probable that, without office, he returned to a convent, possibly that of Treviso, though the evidence is scanty and based on wills and codicils. He was elected Provincial Prior of Lombardy again, however, at the Provincial Chapter held at Brescia in 1293. In 1294 it was held at Faventia, in 1295 at Verona, and in 1296 at Ferrara, where Fr. Nicola's successor was elected, since he had a new assignment, Master General of the Order of Preachers, at the Capitulum Generale of the Order of Preachers, which was held at Strasbourg in 1296. Frater Niccolo of Treviso was elected Master of the Order of Preachers, and issued ordinances that forbade public questioning of the legitimacy of Pope Boniface VIII's papal election on the part of any Dominican cardinalate. Boccasini was elevated to the cardinalate on December 4, 1298, by Boniface VIII, and assigned the title of Cardinal Priest of Santa Sabina. He entered the Roman Curia on March 25, 1299, and thus began to receive his share of the profits of the Chamber of the College of Cardinals. He was promoted to the rank of Cardinal Bishop of the See of Ostia on March 2, 1300, and also received episcopal consecration. On May 13, 1301 he was appointed apostolic legate to Hungary. He made his official departure on June 22, 1301, and returned on May 10, 1303. He also served as papal legate to France. When Pope Boniface VIII was seized at Anagni in September 1303, Boccasini was one of only 2 cardinals to defend the Pope in the episcopal palace itself. The other was Pedro Rodriguez, Bishop of Sabina. They were imprisoned for 3 days. On Monday, September 10, they were liberated by forces led by Cardinal Luca Fieschi, and on September 14, the Pope and his retinue returned to Rome, with an escort organized by Cardinal Matteo Rosa Orsini. Pontificate. Papal election. The conclave to elect the successor of Boniface VIII was held in the Basilica of St. John Lateran, and the College of Cardinals desired an appropriate candidate who would not be hostile towards King Philip IV of France. After one ballot in a conclave that lasted a day, Boccasini was elected as Pope. Actions. He was also quick to annul his predecessor's bull Unam Sanctam, which asserted papal supremacy over secular rulers. He was quick to release King Philip IV from the excommunication that had been put upon him by Boniface VIII. Nevertheless, on the 7th of June 1304, Benedict XI excommunicated Philip IV's implacable minister Guillaume de Nogret and all the Italians who had played a part in the seizure of his predecessor at Anagni. Benedict XI also arranged an armistice between Philip IV of France and Edward I of England. After a brief pontificate that spanned a mere 8 months, Benedict XI died suddenly at Perugia. As original reports had it, suspicion fell primarily on Nogret, with the suspicion that his sudden death was caused by poisoning. There is no direct evidence, however, to either support or disprove the contention that Nogret poisoned the Pope. Benedict XI's successor, Clement V, removed the papal seat from Rome to Avignon, inaugurating the period sometimes known as the Babylonian captivity. He and the French popes who succeeded him were completely under the influence of the kings of France. Pope Benedict XI also celebrated 2 consistories for the purpose of creating new cardinals. The first, on December 18, 1303, elevated Fr. Nicholas Alberti da Prato, Op. the Bishop of Spoleto, and Fr. William Macclesfield, Op. of Canterbury, Prior of the English province of the Dominicans. On February 19, 1304, he elevated Walter Winterbourne, Op. of Salisbury, the confessor of King Edward I of England, who did not want to part with him, and kept him in England for some time. By the time he arrived in Perugia on November 28, 1304, Pope Benedict was dead. Cardinal Winterbourne died at Genoa on September 24, 1305. It cannot escape notice that all three new cardinals were members of the Dominican order. Benedict XI was the author of a volume of sermons and commentaries on the Gospel of Matthew, the Psalms, the Book of Job, and the Book of Revelation. Stories. Cardinal Caesar Baronius wrote that, on the Monday of Easter week in 1304, Pope Benedict XI was celebrating Mass, but a pilgrim interrupted it, because he wanted the Pope to hear his confession. Rather than telling him to find another time or another priest to have his confession, the Pope left the Mass to hear his confession and then returned to continue the Mass. This appears to be an anecdote appropriate for a sermon recommending frequent confession, placed in an age when twice-annual confession was the norm. It is unlikely that a pilgrim would attempt to interrupt a Mass, that a priest would interrupt the Mass for some other function, or that the protocols of the papal court would permit such an unfettered close approach to the pontiff during a sacred service. There is also a story that, at the General Chapter of the Dominicans at Lucca in May 1288, the provincial of the Roman province, Thomas de Aluni, predicted to Fr. Nicola that he would someday be pope. On another occasion, when he was in Venice, a friar of Torcello predicted that he would be provincial, master general, cardinal and pope. This is a sort of flattery often used upon, and then anecdote reported about ecclesiastical persons, after they have reached the height of their eminence. The thousands of times when the prediction does not turn out to be true and not reported, one need not place much significance in such tales. Beatification. Benedict XI earned a reputation for holiness and the faithful came to venerate him. His tomb gained a reputation for the amount of miracles that emerged from the site. Pope Clement XII approved his cultus on the 24th of April 1736, which acted as his formal beatification. Pope Benedict XIV extended his veneration to the Republic of Venice in 1748 after a request from the Venetians. Papal numbering. A note on the numbering. Pope Benedict X is now considered an anti-pope by the Roman Catholic Church. At the time of Benedict XI's election, however, Benedict X was still considered a legitimate pope, and thus the man the Roman Catholic Church officially considers the 10th true Pope. Benedict. Nicola Boccasini took the official number She rather than X. This has advanced the numbering of all subsequent popes Benedict by one digit. Popes Benedict XI, Benedict XVI are, from an official point of view, the 10th through 15th popes by that name. Bibliography. Ch. Grant John, Le Registre de Benoit Jacobus Echard, Scriptores Ordinus Predicatorum Recensiti Thomas I, pp. 444-447, Bernardine, Vita Benedicti Papici, and Vita Clementis Papi V, in Ludovicus Antonius Muratori, Rerum Italicarum Scriptores Thomas Tertius, 672-679. A. Turon, Histoire des Hommes illustres de l'Ordre de Saint-Dominique, tome premier, pp. 655-704. J. B. Christophe L. Histoire de la Papauté pendant 14, sickle tome premier 78-175. Lorenzo Fieta, Nicola Boccasini il suo tempo, Martin Souchon, Die Papstwahlen von Boniface VIII bis Urban VI, Charles Grant John, Benoit Chiavons un pontificate, 1240-1303. Mélanges d'archéologie et d'histoire 8, 219-291. Paul Funke, Papst Benedict XI, Heinrich Finke Ausdentage Boniface VIII. Fund Forschungen, Ferdinando Ferreton, B2 Benedetto Trivigiano, Daniel Antonin Mortier, Histoire des Maîtres Généraux de l'Ordre des Frères Preachers 2, pp. 319-353. Ferdinand Gregorovius, History of Rome in the Middle Ages, Volume 5 2 2nd edition, Revised Book X, Chapter 6, Heinrich Finger, Acta Aragonensia, Quellen zur Deutschen, Italienischen, Französischen, Spanischen, zur Kirchen- und Kulturgeschichte aus der diplomatischen Korrespondenz James II. Ingeborg Walter, Benedetto XI, B.L. Encyclopedia dei Papi. Marina Benedetti, Benedetto XI, Frate Predicator e Papa.